What does that even mean, Bowers Game Corner?
Ahoy there, YouTube! I'm back again today for another game review. And today I'm very excited to check out the Daedalus sentence from Eagle Griffin Games. This is for 1 to 4 players. It'll take about 45 to 60 minutes to play, and it's for ages 14 plus. And in the Daedalus sentence, you are going to be in a prison with your fellow prison mates, and you're going to have asymmetrical abilities, and you're going to be trying to escape from that said prison by dodging minotaurs and killing scientists and doing all sorts of stuff like that. It is a fully cooperative game, but is it good? Let's open it up and I'll tell you what I think about it. Alrighty then, we're going to take a look at what you're going to get inside of the Daedalus sentence. So first and foremost, we're going to get a handy dandy rule booklet, 23 pages, double-sided, full color, full of pictures, illustrations, examples, and it could be better. There's some really confusing things in here, especially when you're first starting the game, which I feel like shouldn't be in here because in actuality, this is a very simple game. I'll give you one prime example that gave us a lot of confusion when we first started the game. Right here, there are 2 bullet points. Ventilation ducts are two-way, so you may also move inward using ventilation ducts revealed on the level you are moving into. Okay, so that tells me that you can go both inward and outward with ventilation ducts, correct? Well, the next bullet point. A ventilation duct may not be used to move inward from the ventilation duct tile. What? What does that mean? There's a couple things like that in here where it's just like, didn't you just contradict yourself? I think we eventually figured out what that meant, but I'm still not completely sure. So the rule booklet definitely needed more work than it got, which is unfortunate because the game is relatively simple. So in the Daedalus sentence, you're going to be taking control of 1 of 5 different heroes. Also, you can play as the bad guy if you want to. I don't particularly like that version of the game, but I'll mention that more in the pros and cons. So you're going to take control of one of the characters, and they are all asymmetrical. So you got the one that can hold more cards, you got the one who's a better brawler, you got Clay there, you got the one who's going to be able to move a little bit faster. They're all going to have their unique special ability. Now, in addition to having their own unique special ability, we'll just go with Clay right here. We'll start him up in his prison cell, the red one. If you ever get captured by minotaurs or by the scientists, which are these guys, and let's see if I can find the scientists real quick. These dudes right here, and we'll get a close-up on those, you go back to your prison cell. If you go back to your prison cell, you are what's called captured, which means someone else on your team has to go rescue you, and as long as you were stuck in your prison cell, everybody that is playing is going to have a negative ability, something negative happening to them. So for instance, if Clay is captured and he's put back in his cell, while Clay is captured, the hive spawns 1 additional Minotaur at the start of every planning phase. So you're just going to have more Minotaurs roaming the board, which is bad because they are the people that are going to try and capture you. Now, your actions are going to be taken control of with these cubes, and you'll get X amount of cubes depending on how many players you have in the game. Obviously, the less players, the more actions you get. You're going to be able to keep track of what actions you can do with this handy dandy little reference board right here, which looks like it's a giant wall of text, but I actually assure you it's very helpful. It tells you exactly what you can do on your turn. It goes over all the different phases, and it's nice, it's sturdy, very nice component-wise. Now, the one con I do have with this, and I'll mention it more in the pros and cons, is the fact on the back they have a close-up of all the different rooms, which is great, but I really wish it told you exactly what the room did on this side as well, because there's a lot of unused space. Granted, you can easily flip it over and look, but it still would be much nicer if you could just, be like, oh yeah, so where this here, this does that. Another comment I have with it, and I'll mention this more, is a lot of these look very similar. I wish they were much more distinctive than they are, but we'll talk more about that later. So, the big thing with this game is the fact that all the different levels are going to be moving like this. They're going to be moving based on this, which I think is called the Theseus board. And you're going to have 8 cards set out over here. And this is going to be telling you what's going to happen during phase 3 of each game. So, we currently are at security level 1. As you progressively go down towards the escape hatch, which is going to be a room down here in one of the green circle, you are going to be moving this further over, and more bad things are going to be happening to you. So the top row is how much a certain row is going to move. So for instance, right here, we would have the green row moving 2 spaces to the right, clockwise. So for that, you would just go, oh, popped out there, 1, 2. And then down here, it would say a lacti scientist would spawn, and this is the lacti scientist point. Now, I mentioned a little bit earlier, there's lacti scientists and there's minotaurs. Now, they both can capture you, but lacti scientists are the one that you really have to fear because minotaurs will actually stay on the same ring. So they will stay, if a minotaur spawns on the red ring, they're never going to leave the red ring. Whereas a lacti scientist will go through various different gates and slowly make his way down to the bottom, which, you guessed it, you're also going to be trying to do. So he's the one you really need to be worrying about. Component-wise, you're also going to get some dice over here. These are for the different variants you can play, and I'll give my comments on the different variants and the pros and the cons. Let's go over how the game works. So we'll just say we have, 4 actions. So I'll place our 4 actions over here. So what are some of the different actions that you're going to be able to do on your turn? So the first one is you can discover an adjacent room, but you're only going to be able to do this if it's the ring you're on, but that rule doesn't count if you're in the prison cell, which isn't very clearly laid out in the rule booklet, which is another nuisance, especially when you're first starting the game. Oh man, we'll talk more about that in the pros and cons. So how you do that is, let's just say, I'm going to discover this one right here, and there we go. So let's take a look at it. We have discovered this one, and as you can see right there, that is a research laboratory, so we'll flip that over, and that means that we can go there and we can draw 2 cards, which is very useful. Now, I haven't even talked about the cards, really, but we'll talk about them in a second. So that would be one of our action cubes. We place it over to the side. The rules also say you can just negate using the action cubes and just remember, because honestly, it's kind of easy, but it's up to you. Now, you're also going to have some cards in your hand, and you can spend 2 action cubes to draw a card, or you can go to the research place and draw 2 cards, which is clearly a better option. And the cards are going to look like the kind of cards you would see up here, except you're going to be using them in different ways. You want these ones because you'll be able to use these to unlock different codes, different gates. So let's see if I can find the first gate here. So, we flipped over that pile, which means we'd actually spawn a minotaur right there. So now we'd have one big bad guy on the blue level looking for us, trying to send us back to a prison. So here we go. We've uncovered the gate. Now, when you uncover a gate, what's going to happen is you have to go there, and if you go there, you can try to crack the code of the gate. So you put this down right here because it corresponds with that, and then you're going to flip over 2 cards with that one because it has a 2 on it. So you'd flip these over, and now you have to crack the code. In order to crack this code, you need to turn in a Minotaur card and a yellow card or a 2 card. So essentially you can match it up kind of like Uno with either the same color or the same number. Minotaur cards and Lacti Scientists are a lot harder to do because you just have to have that exact card in hand. You have to turn them both in at the same time, and if you do that, you have unlocked the gate. When you unlock the gate, that's going to open up your access to go down to the lower level, which means you can start exploring lower levels, and you guessed it, also go down lower levels, because that is how you're going to make your way down to green to hopefully get to the escape hatch. Now, you might also notice there's some wilds in here. These are ones you really kind of don't want to see on the board because that mean that pretty much everything is going to be turning. You'll also see these kind of cards out here on your thesis board. That means that Minotaurs and Lactae Scientists are going to start spawning. The Scientists always spawn on, right here and work their way down, even though once you get down to the bottom row, there's actually a Scientist spawn point, which will scare the bejesus out of you, because you'll also have these cards in your hand. Now, these cards are going to be used to kill the various different Minotaurs and Lacti Scientists that you will encounter. Lacti Scientists are more powerful, so you can turn in 3 Minotaur cards to kill 1 Lacti Scientist, or, obviously, you can turn in 1 Lacti Scientist card to kill a Lacti Scientist. Likewise, you can use a Lacti card to kill 3 Minotaurs if they're on the same space, which I don't think would actually happen, because whenever you get 3 Minotaurs on the same space, they combine and they turn into a Lacti Scientist. So that's how the game kind of speeds itself up, because you might have a bunch of Lacti Scientists or a bunch of Minotaurs, say in the red row, but eventually they're going to turn into Lacti Scientists, and then they'll start going down through the gates, and they will start following you when you get to this phase right here. So we didn't really talk. We talked a little bit about the top phase, which means you're going to be moving the physical board. The bottom phase is going to show you how the different troops are going to move. So let's cheat a little bit, and we'll put this right here. We'll put this red 3 right here. So what this tells me during phase 3 is that every single troop in the red ring is going to move 3 spaces clockwise. So this guy would go 1, 2, 3. So you have to be consistently planning your moves based on what's going to happen with this board out here. Now there's also some rooms that will come into play which will allow you to manipulate that. What is it? The control room and the communications relay will allow you to trade cards from your hand to up here, which can really help you out. There's also a hatchery which will allow you to hide in there, so you can totally lay down, and you actually physically lay your character down, which means he's hiding in that room. So if a scientist or a Minotaur comes in there, he won't be able to find you. And then the last kind of room are the ventilation duct rooms, which I actually showed you a little bit in the rule example, where you will be able to go from ventilation duct to ventilation duct, because that will be necessary from time to time, especially when you have to work your way up to rescue your friends, because when your friends get captured by a Minotaur or Lacti scientist, they get taken back to their cell. So if someone is ever taken back to their cell twice, you immediately lose the game. How do you win the game, you may be asking? Well, once you get down to the bottom green row, you will eventually find the big gate, which is going to require you to use, yes, 6 cards to open that gate. So you have to open that gate, then you have to get all the players down to that gate. If you're able to successfully do that, you will be the winner of the Daedalus sentence, and that in a nutshell is how the game is played. Alrighty then, the Daedalus sentence from Eagle Griffin Games. What are my final thoughts? Let's go over the pros, let's go over the cons. Before we do that though, I do want to mention that the action system in this game is all willy-nilly, and I forgot to mention this in the middle part, where player 4 can take 2 actions, and player 1 can take 1 action, player 3 can take all their actions. You can mix up how each player takes their action and in what order they take their actions based how you see fit in helping you escape the prison, which I'll talk more about in the pros and cons. But let's get to the cons first. 1 to 4 players, restricted player count. Even though you can play with 5 players, you just have to add the 5th player, which is the bad guy, which I'm not a particular fan of that game mode. And the big reason why I'm not is, yes, it does make it a little bit more difficult, and it adds a little bit more tension, which I like, but it strips away the asymmetrical powers, and it strips away that when you get captured, you have something bad that everyone has to deal with, and I really like that aspect of the game. So I was not a fan of someone playing as the bad guy, but hey, you might. So I definitely recommend trying it if you end up getting this game. Now, continuing on with the cons, the rule booklet is subpar, and there's some problems with the rule booklet, which really hindered my first play experience of this. We played a 3-player game of this the first time, and it lasted about 1 hour and 45 minutes, which was way too long. And that was very frustrating. And the rules could have been better. They could have been streamlined. And it just, you get this game and you get it out for the first time and everything's big and meaty and you're like, oh, look at these big pieces and these big dice and this big board and this big box and you want this great experience, and to have a poor rule booklet sour that first experience is just really unfortunate. They should have spent more time on the rule booklet making it better. Continuing on with the cons, I don't have too many component cons. I personally like the miniatures. I like nearly all the components except for this half of the player board. This half of the player board is incredibly useful, and I wish all games came with something like this. This is very sturdy. But the back has all the different rooms on it, and I really just wish that they would have put, just very briefly, maybe even in symbology, what you could do in that room. Because once you get a hang of the game, you might not need this side as much, but it'd still be nice to have that reference. And that's another con. The rooms look very similar, and I don't like that. I wish the rooms were better differentiated, especially the vents. There's these little boxes in the game, which we kept getting confused with vents because they kind of look like vents, and that was just frustrating. And also how the ventilation system worked. I'm sure it's very simple, but the way they explained it in the rules made it more complex than it needed to be, which is just another problem with the rule booklet. Not a fan of the artwork. It's just, it's just a little bit blah, but obviously that's a your mileage may vary kind of thing. I have to mention it. I cannot go through this review without mentioning it. The box is humongous, which is going to be a turnoff to a lot of people. So I've got another box here just so you can get a fair comparison. I imagine this is probably about a Ticket to Ride size box that I have right here with this Flamand Rouge game. And it's a lot bigger. So it's going to be very difficult to fit on certain shelves, which might be a turnoff to some people. I know personally I have a large game room, and I'm still going to be struggling to find a spot for this game just because it's so long, both length and width-wise. But, that's a nitpick, but something I did want to mention. Also, the price tag. MSRP is going to be $150, so you're probably going to be looking at pay about $100 to $120 for this game. And that is a high price tag. Now, I generally don't try and comment on the price tags of games, but I don't feel like this is a $100 game. I just don't. It does not give you an epic scale. It does not give you an epic feel. The gameplay is relatively simplistic when you get down to it. So yeah. Any other cons I have with the game? Oh, the box insert. Yeah, the box insert's really nice, but you have to realize that the board, it's gonna pop out a little bit. It's more of a nitpick than anything. Just mainly the rule booklet. That's the big thing here. So let's go over the pros. Do I enjoy the Daedalus sentence? I just spent a lot of time slapping the game around. I do. It's a fun cooperative game, and I like it. I like a lot about this. I like how everybody gets to take their actions in their own due time, so you can really kind of set up what you want to do, and you can have people explore different rooms and then adjust to that on the fly. I like that aspect because it really makes you work cooperatively. Now, there also are variants in the back of the rule booklet, and some of them I really think should be implemented into the game. So the first one is you have an hour time limit before, I think it's like the cleaning system goes off or something like that. And I love that. This game should not go over an hour. Period. This is not an hour-plus long game. It should not be. There's also one where you will have timed limits on how long your action phase could be, which I really love that one. That stresses working together, and when you're flipping over tiles, I like that version of the game a lot. It also speeds the game up exponentially, which is to the game's benefit. So you can do it where you just have a flat set of time, and there's also a big chunky die, which will tell you exactly how much time you have during that action phase. Not so much a big a fan of that one, because like if you get 15 seconds to do your actions, it's like, that's ridiculous. There's also a red dice that you could throw in there, which is essentially going to kind of hinder you each round. So maybe you can't go through ventilation ducts, or maybe you can't draw cards this round. I like that die as well if you want to add more difficulty to it. There's also another die, which I really do recommend adding in there, and I don't remember what the heck it's called, where it's essentially going to make it so that Minotaurs are going to be spawning in a lot more random locations. So the way it sets up now is the Minotaurs are going to spawn in generally 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 different locations, aside from, randomly popping up on different tiles when you flip over a tile. They're going to have 5 different spots where they're going to be flipping up. They're going to have 4 different spots where they're going to be flipping up, excuse me. But with this, you're actually going to be counting the number on the cards as well, and so they're going to be spawning in a lot of different places. It creates more of a sense of tension. I think it makes the hatchery a much more viable option. I like that version of the game. So honestly, there's like 2 or 3 of the optional variants that I highly would recommend checking out if you get this game. I know a lot of people just skip those, brush over them, don't play with them. I do recommend checking those out because I do think they enhance the game. They make the game shorter, they make the game more tense, and they make the game a little bit more difficult, which I think are all very good things that can help extend the legs of this game. There's also some asymmetricalness to this, there's asymmetrical because your characters are going to do different things, which I love asymmetrical abilities. But I also love the fact that there's a little variability here, with obviously each time the Theseus board is going to be a little bit different, but also there's some tiles that will not be in play from game to game. It doesn't make that big of an effect because, there's just not enough tiles in the game, and I wish there were some more tiles that did some more things in the game. But still, if you're looking for bang for your buck, there is going to be some variability there. Now, another thing I really like is the fact that once you get captured, you're going to have some negative that everyone has to deal with. And this is really cool, especially if maybe you're down in the green and yellow ring, down towards the bottom, because you have to try and work your way up to help that person escape, which can be very difficult, especially later in the game when you just have Minotaurs everywhere. So I really did like that aspect of the game. Like I mentioned, I slammed the game on the cons, and that's primarily just because of the rule booklet, the box size, and the price. Because, me personally, I'm a very frugal person. I am always worried about the price of various different things. And to see this game and to say, all right, I could get this game, or I could get, say, another cooperative game. I could get 2 other cooperative games. Heck, I could probably get 3 other cooperative games for the same price of this game. It's just a really hard sell when I look at it from that perspective. But judging the game purely based on how much fun it is, first gameplay aside, which was an absolute dumpster fire that was way too long and way too much of like, I think these are how these rules work. I think this is how we escape from these prison cells. This is a fun, enjoyable game that I liked. I really did enjoy it. I would like to see in the future expansions, and I think that will give the game some more legs with more tiles. Maybe a third different kind of enemy would be cool as well. But as it stands, the Daedalus Sentence is a fun game. And if you can get past the bad rule booklet, and if you can get past the huge box, and if you can get past the big price, it's a fun cooperative game that I can recommend. But that's a lot of caveats there. So that is the Daedalus Sentence from Eagle Griffin Games. One that probably should have been a little bit smaller and a little bit cheaper for what you're getting in the box, but still is an enjoyable game on its own merit. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to click on that subscribe button down below. In the comments below, let me know, is Batman a superhero? I argue with my children in my classroom all the time and tell them Batman is in fact not a superhero because he does not have superpowers. Now I know some people like to make the argument that because he does super deeds, that makes him a superhero. I would argue that in that case, then police officers and firefighters and surgeons are all superheroes, which you're muddying the waters there. So I would say he's absolutely not a superhero. He's a rich billionaire with a lot of toys and a lot of bravery, but he's not a superhero. I still love Batman, so this isn't any Batman slander here, but he's not a superhero. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below, and as always, thanks for your time, YouTube.